Building wealth in real estate isn't just about collecting rent. It's about understanding the three most powerful wealth building tools: cash flow, equity, and appreciation. If you can master these, you can transform your financial future. When I first started investing, I thought all I needed to do was rent out the property to cover my expenses. But real wealth in real estate comes from understanding how cash flow, equity, and appreciation work together. If you're ignoring one of these three pillars, you could be leaving tens of thousands of dollars on the table, or worse, struggling to scale your portfolio. Let's break them down so you can maximize your success. And when I bought my first duplex, I was obsessed with cash flow. My dad, who owned a couple of C-class duplexes, had inspired me to invest when he used those properties to buy the building for our family's Chinese restaurant. My first deal was a bank foreclosure for $4,600. You heard that right, $4,600. My business partner and I financed it with credit cards and did all of the renovations ourselves. Our dads jumped in, showing us how to paint, drywall, fix plumbing issues. But once we rented the units out, I thought we had quote unquote made it because the rent covered the expenses. But I didn't really fully understand how equity and appreciation were working behind the scenes together to build our wealth. The breakthrough came when a credit union manager, impressed by the work we had done, gave us a $20,000 line of credit secured by the equity in the property. And then we used that equity, that credit line, to buy 3 more properties. That was a moment that I learned that cash flow is just the beginning, but equity and appreciation are where the real wealth magic happens. So let's go through these pillars. Now, what is cash flow? Okay, the foundation. The definition of cash flow is the money left over after you've paid off all the expenses on a rental property on a monthly basis. Now, maybe not exactly on a monthly basis. I mean, you could say cash flow for the year, but I always refer to cash flow on a rental property on a monthly basis because, as you've heard me say on other episodes, a rental property is a month-to-month business, okay? All right, so the formula for cash flow is income minus expenses equals cash flow. Now, the sources of that rental income could be varied. It could be your rent payments. It could be maybe you're renting out a parking spot, so parking fees. It could be laundry income. Maybe you've got coin-operated laundry on site, or you've got a smart card system. Common expenses could include your mortgage payment, your property taxes, your insurance, R&M or repairs and maintenance, property management fees if you are using a third-party property manager. And then you should also factor in things like vacancy losses. Not exactly an expense, but it definitely affects cash flow. Now, your goal, obviously, is positive cash flow because that means your property is generating passive income each month. Some properties don't generate positive cash flow, but they're still very, very profitable. We can talk about that because in a later episode, maybe, because I truly don't believe that cash flow is the end all and be all. I think too many people focus on cash flow so much because I really believe that the wealth builder is equity. So let's define that. Equity is the difference between your property's market value and what you still owe on it, okay? Now, the formula, market value minus mortgage balance equals equity. Now, the ways you can build equity, like I said, the mortgage pay down. As the tenants pay rent, your loan balance decreases, increasing your equity. Another way that the equity increases is you're doing property improvements, okay? So renovations, you do upgrades, that increases the property's value. So if your property is worth more, then that is boosting your equity because, again, what your property is worth minus what you owe. So if you've done those renovations, strategic renovations, and now your property is worth more, then your equity is there. Market appreciation. So that is when the property values increase or they rise, so rising property values. And then because, again, you're taking what the property is worth minus what you owe. So if the market around you in your city, in your state, your province, wherever it is, property values generally, for the most part, go up, okay? And that's just inherent in real estate. So if property values increase, then you're also building equity passively. Now, equity, my dad used to say, well, that's great, Garrett, but it's only worth what somebody's willing to pay when you sell it. So how can you access and leverage equity? First thing that we like to use is a cash out refinance. So you could refinance your property, pull the cash from the equity for whatever you want. I wouldn't recommend going on a hot vacation unless maybe you're from Winnipeg. I mean, right now I'm looking out the window, it's minus 28 degrees. No, all seriousness though, you refinance your property, you pull the cash out, you should be using that cash from the equity for new investments. Maybe real estate, maybe you're putting into some of the other diversification vehicles like other businesses or even stocks and, bonds and GICs and things like that. You could do a home equity line of credit. That's a HELOC. So that's borrowing against your equity for flexibility. You could sell the property. So you could cash out by selling when the equity has significantly grown. So cash flow, equity. Let's talk about the third pillar, appreciation. This is the long-term wealth multiplier, the multiplier. Definition: appreciation is the increase in your property's market value over time. We talked about this already, but example, let's say you bought a property for $300,000 and the market in your area is growing at, let's just say 5%. And I really like using 5% because that is actually the Canadian average. I'm up here in Canada. The Canadian average, I think over 50 years is 5%. So if you take that minimum, it doesn't sound like very much. You've got a $300,000 property. After 1 year, the market value is now worth $315,000, and that's a gain of 15 grand in equity without doing anything else. What other factors drive appreciation? Well, like we said, market demand, like supply and demand. So if the demand for that particular type of property is higher, supply and demand, basic economics 101 would dictate that the market value you would be able to sell that property for more, okay? Because there's less supply. Location improvements, so there could be new schools that were built, there could be infrastructure, maybe there's, rapid transit that just came through, maybe there is some community improvements, lowering in crime, maybe there's a hospital, whatever it might be that drives people to go in there. And then again, supply and demand. Economic growth could also happen. Again, industries, think if Amazon, UPS, maybe they move a warehouse into the area and there's an influx of people that want and need to live there. Okay, all of those things, economic factors can increase appreciation. The magic is when all three are working together, and that's where the wealth compounding happens. So imagine you buy a rental property for $400,000 for easy math, and you get positive cash flow of $500 a month. Your annual appreciation, if we only take 5%, 400,000 times 5% is $20,000. Okay, so $20,000, it's appreciating in value every year. You've got, let's say, on an average mortgage, we're talking about easy math here. Let's say that because the tenants are paying down your mortgage, they're paying it down with the rental payments of, let's say, $6,000 a year. I know that doesn't sound like very much, but consider that a mortgage payment, at least in the early years when you first purchase that property, the majority of that mortgage payment is interest expense, which of course we can write off, but that's another episode, podcast episode. Okay, equity pay down of $6,000. Okay, from the mortgage payments. So let's add all of that up together. We've got $500 of cash flow times 12, so that's $6,000. We mentioned $20,000 in market appreciation, and we said the tenant paid down $6,000 of your mortgage. When you add all of that at once, okay, what are we talking about here? $6,000 in cash flow, $20,000 in market appreciation, and $6,000 in equity pay down. 6 and 6, that's 12 plus 20, $32,000 for owning that property, doing nothing else for 1 year. Okay, that's almost a wage for some people, $32,000. Okay, so let's summarize what we have here that I've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. Cash flow, immediate passive income from monthly stability. Equity, long-term wealth through mortgage paydown and property value growth. Appreciation, passive wealth accumulation over time due to market forces. If you're serious about building real wealth in real estate, you need to master cash flow, equity, and appreciation and how they work together. I break all of these down step by step inside the My First Keys online community, where we help new investors get started the right way. You can access the community completely free for 6 weeks, no credit card required. Just click the link in the description below to join us and start transforming your financial future today.